Auto Hoaxer GTFO by Chief Crow and the Flat Earth Worms. I'll be spamming the link in the chat for your perusal at your leisure. So, a couple of things came up today. My last stream, about an hour ago, got cut down the instant I started talking about Michio Kaku. And this is in response to an article by the Dallas Observer, which I'm not going to open. Last time I opened it, well, I'm going to have to, but it killed my browser. Anyway, let me go ahead and show you this. It says, you don't have to be a genius to figure it out. You just take an airplane trip, and there it is. My God, look. You can see that the Earth is curved. Michio Kaku is a theoretical physicist, and he should know better. He should know that the Earth isn't big enough. It's just not. I mean, it's. What I mean is, you're not big enough to see the curve unless you're like, what, 50,000, 60,000 feet, according to their model, if then. They're just like, you can see it from an airplane, you can see it from the beach. It's like they haven't told him or he doesn't know. I'm not quite sure what it is. Maybe they don't care to get all technical about it and they just want to say we can see the curve just to kind of quell any questioning. I don't know. But it's like, how does he not know? Like, that's not really a good argument. I mean, even his buddy Neil deGrasse Tyson says you have to be like, I think he says even 250. Like, even with the ISS, I don't know. But if you think about it, that thing is 250 miles up, which isn't really that high, relative to. It's like, what do you expect? These people, they expect that you get up on your roof and you're going to see a bend. And, there's a website I actually like. There's a YouTube channel. I think it's Truth is Stranger Than Fiction News. And he was insisting that he can see it from the beach. And he got kind of mad about it. Check this out. This is a solar transit. ISS recorded on October 27th, 2017. Wait, this was uploaded today. I'm going to need to know the time and the date. One second. Whenever somebody shows me an ISS transit, I have to dig a little bit. Okay. I'd like to know the time and the date and the location. And did you use the app? But I'm looking for the ISS. So this would obviously be with the solar filter over it. I didn't see it. I'll look again. Okay, we're supposed to be observing an International Space Station going across the sun. I haven't seen it yet. Let me see if I can get the uploader to call in or direct me. Champ Bear said, I just heard them making fun of Flat Earth on the radio. Oh, that's cool. Okay, here we go. Again, I'm trying to see it. If you upload this video, ISS Transit, Canine Conversions, where the heck is the space station? I mean, you captured the dog barking, but I don't see the space station. I mean, are you pulling my leg? Whoever uploaded this video, let me know. Like, what's the deal with this? This was the guy who claimed that he recorded an ISS transit, and he couldn't remember off the top of his head when or where. So he uploads a new video. I hear his dog barking, and he's shining on ostensibly the sun, and I don't see the space station. Like, would you please help me here? Is this some type of sick joke? I want to move on, but I want this person to tell me where the space station is. What's up, Greenbeak? Okay, Champ Bear. A lot of these self-identified bears in here. Champ Bear, please tell me, where is the ISS on your video? Like you didn't help me at all. You said, "Yeah, I recorded it." Well, where is it? You got a 16-second clip. I've watched it 16 times already, and I can't see it. Good sound effects. I'm not even convinced I'm looking at the sun. Nothing at all. This has to be a joke. Is Champ Bear trolling us right now? Like, are you seriously telling me this is a space station transit? Like, they ought to look the same. We've seen many different transits. And if you're spying the same object 250 miles away, crossing the same object, the same light source, it ought to look the same. And I don't see the TIE fighter. I don't see the space station with the solar array and Chris Hadfield at the cupola playing David Bowie songs on his guitar. Like, I don't see the usual stuff that I expect to see in an ISS transit. This guy's pulling a NASA on us. All right, Champ Bear, I'm going to give you one more chance and you will you'll get kicked out of here. Where is the ISS? You uploaded it, but you didn't tell us where, and it's really suspicious to me that you uploaded it today. You told me, "Oh, I recorded the space station 2 years ago." I'm like, when, where? You couldn't remember. You upload it today, 2 views. I'm the only person to have looked at this thing. And again, it's empty. There's no space station. Like, this is killing me. Champ Bear says it goes fast. Okay, what? Okay, okay, at the 1 second mark, 2 second mark, because every other ISS transit I've seen, you have a full second. You've got like 33 frames to go through where you can see it moving around and you can notice there's no motion blur. If yours is going faster than the one that Jaron showed us, then one of you is a liar. So again, I'm looking for your quote fast space station. I still haven't seen it. It's a 16-second video. I'm not going to let it go, Champ Bear. You have to call in, or we're just going to have to conclude that you work for NASA. You're an Elon Musk fanboy, or something else. I mean, I don't know what it could be. Where is it? Anybody watching at home, looking on the screen? No, wait, I saw it. There it is. I just saw it. At 8 seconds in, and I think it was way too small. Let's see. Now, when you fake an ISS transit, who supplies the clip art that you drag across the screen? Just kidding. Okay, that's the fastest I've ever seen it. I would like to zoom in. It looks too small and there's not enough detail and it's going too fast. Let's compare it to another solar transit. And then our question has to be, why would he lie if he doesn't work for NASA? Okay, here we go. 2017.
Reese's Take 5 is stuffed
This
with...
is going to be another transit, and I'm just going to show you for comparison. 17,000 miles per hour is what we're talking about from 250 miles away. We've all seen it. We've looked at it incredulously, but we've seen it. So I just want to show you how his solar transit measures up to when one of the actual, like, here we go, appointed, ISS trackers. Like, look at this one here. Look how much detail there is. And by the way, you can count individual solar array. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's the cupola. There's JAXA, there's ESA, there's ISS, there's the Chinese wing, there's the Russians, there's Peg Whitman with a glass of distilled Russian cosmonaut urine. There's Hadfield, like I said. He's singing David Bowie songs in the cupola. And then up there on the top, fixing a battery in a spacewalk is one of I think it's Mark Kelly. But anyway, this is the normal level of detail you see with an ISS transit. And with his other guys, we don't see it. We could say he has maybe inferior equipment, but note the speed. The speed of the transit. And also look here, this is funny. You guys all played Pac-Man as a kid? Where when Pac-Man moves, he doesn't actually move. He goes blip, 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 blip. Take a look. How does that happen? How is this space station blipping? Like you don't see it all across the surface of the sun. It's actually disappearing and moving, reappearing. Disappearing, moving, reappearing. It's like the thing with the particle physics. Sometimes it's a particle, sometimes it's a wave. I mean, look at this, how it's just going in and out. Now, if you're looking at the Pac-Man game, the old school Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man, you see the characters blinking. You know this because you know this is how the simple animation works. So my question is, why is it that all of these ISS transits have the damn thing blinking like Pac-Man? Could it be that it's not real? That it's an animation? Uh-oh. Busted. We shouldn't see that much detail. That's total bullshit. This guy's thing is a little blurry. I see if I can fix it. Quality. Let me up my quality to 1080. We'll compare it, but I'm telling you right now, it's moving too fast. It doesn't move that fast on any other transits. These things are standardized. That's why if you're going to fake something on behalf of NASA, you know, um, try to use the same software they use so you don't undermine their efforts. Like I assume if you're on the same payroll, they send you all a link to the same Dropbox. Oh, here's the ISS, and here are the instructions for inserting it into your footage. I like how this one's kind of waving. Yeah, it's moving too fast and it's too small. Way too small, not enough detail, moving too fast. I would need more evidence. I have to assume that one's fake. Champ Bear says it goes fast. So my question is, do you work for NASA? Or are you just a volunteer? Like, hey, big brother, I got some spare time. Let me manufacture some evidence to support the dominant paradigm because I serve you. Like, what's your agenda? Like, I understand if you're getting paid, but why would you hoax an ISS transit? Those things are impossible. Now, I want to get to the purpose of the live stream right now. Let me go ahead and I'm going to hit record. So, what I want to start off with is this. The Dallas Observer did a piece on Michio Kaku, and I came across some stuff that I think ties into everything we've been talking about with regards to deepfakes and death fakers, and how the paradigm is more or less maintained by its heavy influencers, pop culture icons. So this is theoretical physicist Michio Kaku, and after having attended the Flat Earth conference, Danny Gallagher interviewed this guy about the flat Earth. And so I'm looking through here, and there are a number of things I think that kind of reinforce what we've been saying for some time, that what we're looking at with Michio Kaku is in fact something more akin to a character. Not all that different from like an Elon Musk, as in we're looking at a composite, someone who exists on the world stage. So he said, you don't have to be a genius to figure it out. You just take an airplane trip and there it is. My God, you can see the Earth is curved. So Michio Kaku is basically saying, you just get in an airplane, you can see the curve, which isn't true. Earlier I mentioned there's a YouTube channel, I think it's Stranger Than Fiction News, who says the same thing. He says, I can go to my beach, and I can look and see the Earth is curved. Like, no, you actually can't see the curve of the ocean, unless you have special eyes. I mean, the fact is you're too small relative to the Earth to see it. So, Michio Kaku, again, worth discussing in the realm of deepfakers because he's believed to be none other than Bruce Lee, who died of an overdose after fake dying in a movie the way that his son would future die on a movie set, as he died in the movie before he died of an overdose. So here you have it. This is Michio Kaku, Bruce Lee. So what I like to point out whenever we're talking about deepfakers or celebrities who've been rebranded is there's usually a narrative that supports it and there's a rationale. So I'm like, well, what is the connection between these two? And I've been digging into this one for a while. And I recognize there's certain tropes, there's certain archetypes, and I'm going to get into all of that. But I want to show you something specifically. It's just so you have an idea of who Michio Kaku is. So he helped create calculations sought by Albert Einstein, who said he could, quote, read the mind of God. He co founded string theory, or rather, the string theory subset called string field theory, providing a 1 inch long equation that could explain all of the universe's laws. And this is what I wanted to stop with. So, one, he has hair like Albert Einstein, so instant credibility with the masses. But two, he's known for having essentially solved everything. I mean, this is basically, coming up with an explanation for everything, theory of everything. Something, this is like a major breakthrough. But he has here been given credit with providing the 1 inch long equation. So the 1 inch long equation is actually, I think, a clue. Sort of like Rush Limbaugh and Jim Morrison share the golden microphone. They both use golden microphones. Like, okay, that's interesting. Noteworthy if you're already asserting that you may be looking at the same person. But check this out. So I'm looking into this Bruce Lee Michio Kaku thing, and I just found out that today that Michio was basically given some credit for this 1 inch equation. And it ties in perfectly to the character of Bruce Lee, and I'm going to show you how. So let's start with this one. The 1 inch equation to explain all physical laws. You might have heard me speak about the equation that eluded Einstein for the last 30 years of his life. The 1 inch equation that will, in a sense, summarize everything we know about the physical laws governing the universe that we live in. So this is, again, Michio Kaku comes up with this 1 inch equation to explain all physical laws. That's his superpower. So let's move up. Washington Post. Now, this is a story about Bruce Lee. The intriguing science behind Bruce Lee's 1 inch punch. So what we have here is an article about Bruce Lee and his supposed 1 inch punch, which, again, I'm going to get into all these in detail a bit later. I just want to kind of go over how what we have here are these characters that are created, or archetypes that are often rebranded. And this is, I think, part of the deep faking, the weaponized anthropology, where they have these characters who are deep in your subconscious and they may reappear to you, and that cognitive dissonance overrides your ability to actually recognize them. But a number of things do connect them, one of them being this: the 1 inch punch of Bruce Lee and the 1 inch equation of Michio Kaku. And check this out. This is the type of statement Bruce Lee is known for. Matter and energy, yang and yin, heaven and earth, essentially one or as two coexistent poles of one indivisible whole. So what you have is, this guy who's always basically saying very, transcendent things. Same with Michio Kaku, theoretical physicist who talks about things, the nature of the universe, things which regular mortal people can't really get. And what I think what we're seeing here, part of the archetype, and this is, again, so this is the 1 inch equation, but let me look into the 1 inch punch, just so you have an idea of how these two things do correlate. The 1 inch punch is, and this is from Popular Mechanics, it's a technique which is basically it's basically been mystified. Like, so for example, when you talk about Bruce Lee, people will say things like he kicked so fast it was superhuman. Bruce Lee, fastest kicks in the world, slowed down 0.25x. So they talk about this as though these things are superhuman. The science of the 1 inch punch, physiology and neuroscience combine to explain Bruce Lee's master move. So forget all the broken boards and concrete slabs. No feat of martial arts is more impressive than Bruce Lee's 1 inch punch. From 1 inch away, he could muster an explosive blow that could knock opponents clean off the ground. The biomechanics are not trivial, but it owes more to brain structure than raw strength. So this is Matrix type stuff. This is Neo breaking the Matrix. It's transcendence. At least that's how it's being uh, described here. Like there's something magical about this 1 inch punch. It says, as Lee's shoulder bolts ahead, his arm gets to work. The swift and simultaneous extension of his elbows drives his fist, flicking his wrist prior to impact, increasing the fist velocity. This shortens the impact of the blow, compressing the force and making it all the more powerful. So it goes into martial arts neuroscience. It says in 2012, they did this study where they found that there is something about karate experts that makes them punch harder than untrained people. And they use motion tracking cameras. And anyway, what they came to is that basically he had rewired his brain. It says Lee owes his master feat to a beefed up glob of white matter. So, because of his mental state, he actually maximized his ability to punch, and so you have it, his 1 inch punch. And now I'd like to contrast that, compare that with Michio Kaku's 1 inch equation to explain all physical laws. So I'm saying that you're seeing the same character repackaged. In this case, he's someone who's transcended. And so then I want to get into this. These are TV tropes from tvtropes.org, and this goes into various, what I'd call Hollywood archetypes. They call them tropes, but it's the same thing, where you have certain characteristics or archetypes that they put into the movies, specifically usually for influencing in a very specific way, like how the people see certain groups. So here it says, magical Asian, a mentor usually to a white character. He will usually be trained in martial arts, a practitioner of traditional Asian medicine, or some Eastern religion. If he's not explicitly supernatural, he will, often but not always, be so highly skilled in his art that it will appear superhuman. They will be impossibly good fighters. They will be able to diagnose and cure any illness. Expect scenes of them meditating. So it goes on about this trope that you see throughout American cinema. It goes on to say, this often overlaps with the old master. So I think this is part of the archetype that they gave us. And this is the old master. And so as a theoretical physicist, he's still something of a quasi-mystic. And theoretical physics does borderline on mysticism. It talks about transcendence, alternate realities, overcoming time, and all the rest. In fact, Michio Kaku was talking about, he figured out with this 1 inch equation how to read the mind of God. He says, old master, this is a continuation of the same kind of trope. Okay, don't let his age fool you. Says, he might have been a badass bookworm on the way. Any physical decline he suffered won't matter. He's learned how to defeat those who are stronger. Anyway, this is just kind of an overlap with the magical Asian archetype or stereotype or trope. And I'm saying that they have created this character that does overlap. And you can find many examples like this again, where Bruce Lee is talking about matter and energy, heaven and earth, yin and yang, two coexistent poles, part of one indivisible whole. You can find this, and then you can go into Michio Kaku, and you can find various quotes ascribed to him that are very analogous to this. Only he does it in more, quantum. It talks about quantum realities. His terminology is different, but it's pretty much the same thing. And again, tonight I'm just contrasting his 1 inch equation to Bruce Lee's 1 inch punch under the presumption that these two are the same, that it is the same person. Listen to this. In the beginning, God said the four-dimensional divergence of an asymmetric second-rank tensor equals zero, and there was light and it was good. You see what I mean? Like, this is wisdom. This is, it's. I believe we exist in a multiverse of universes. Much of it is about human potential. Michio says humans are natural-born scientists. When we're born, we want to know why the stars shine. In many ways, he talks about things that sound almost identical. Here's an example. The internet frees people to realize they don't have to live like slaves. Now let's look at some Bruce Lee quotes. So there you have Michio Kaku giving you statements about freedom of the mind. And here we go. This is Bruce Lee. We must value ourselves more than we value things. As you think, so shall you become. Knowing is not enough. We must apply. He goes on, like I said, back and forth. If you think a thing is impossible, you'll make it impossible. A goal is meant to be reached. Anyway, we have many examples back and forth of these two guys essentially saying the same stuff. And I'm saying it's the same character. It's the same TV trope. Repackaged. Transcendent. 1 inch punch. 1 inch equation. Magical Asian old master. All kids are born geniuses but are crushed by society. Michio Kaku. Defeat is a state of mind. No one is defeated until they accept it as a reality. Bruce Lee. Let me go ahead and see your comments. MGD84 says, you think this guy is Bruce Lee? Oh, yeah. I mean, we've been talking about this for a bit. Um, yeah, we're saying that this is the same character that Bruce Lee faked his death. We even compare it, well, Brandon Lee, his son, it's all part of the same program. But yeah, no doubt. So let's look into Bruce Lee, death faker. And there are so many indicators that this was going to happen. A number of sites have really picked up on this, but the part where I think it gets interesting is when you compare him to Michio Kaku and how these characters overlap. Because what I'm trying to show people is that when these characters are replaced or when they're fake killed and they're brought back, you can often find hints, examples of how, yeah, it is the same person repackaged. We're not talking about clones. We're talking about age, different haircut. We're talking about characters on the world stage, fake dying. So no, Bruce Lee, I would say, didn't die. Nor did his son Brandon Lee die in the way that Bruce Lee died in a movie, right before he, quote, died. I mean, they've been doing this forever. So he dies at 32 in some months. So in his 33rd year, his son dies incidentally on the same day Nipsey Hussle died. And of course, his son dies like Bruce Lee dies in the movie Games of Death. His son, 28, Brandon Lee, is believed to come back as Christopher Green with AMTV. So let's take a look at this really quick. So I'm saying beyond the physical resemblances, you can find many different correlations, especially in, like I said before, we're dealing with the meta script and characters who are written onto the world stage. So when a character is written onto the stage, they insert them into the narrative. And when they have certain archetypes, you'll see that they kind of do have this way of rhyming. So for the 1 inch punch to become the 1 inch equation makes perfect sense. This would be Christopher Green and this would be Brandon Lee. This is something that's been exposed ad nauseum. Not here to focus on that one so much. But let's see. Again, what I like to point out is that we're not talking about anything random. There are storylines that connect these things. So I'm going to talk about this one more. We had some new information come up with Juice WRLD's fake death. Again, predicted in his lyrics, predicted by himself, predicted in his tweets. Nothing new there. Tomorrow, by the way, just want to get this out of the way. I'm going to be speaking with John LeBon about the Mandela effect. So if you haven't read it, Mendoozled, The Mandela Effect Debunked, you can read it free at Smashwords. I'm putting a link in the chat. You can read it for free, Mendoozled, The Mandela Effect Debunk. I'm going to be discussing this with John LeBon. So if you don't know who John LeBon is, I'm going to play a couple minutes. He had a discussion with Nathan Oakley. So here's John LeBon yesterday. And again, I'll be speaking with him tomorrow. So you'll want to be subscribed to Patreon so you can get an email link to wherever that's taking place.
That circular outside.
We have to wait for Nathan Oakley to get his money. Damn monetized channels. How do you keep a channel monetized on YouTube this day? I mean, just seems like if you're saying anything worth saying, they're censoring you.
The one direction.
No worries.
Clockwise or counterclockwise.
No worries. Okay, I'll do it with a roundabout. Bloody hellfire. You're standing on a.
You've just realised the problem with your
roundabout.
car example, haven't you?
No, you're interrupting me while I'm making with your roundabout criteria. Yeah, you're watching the car from the roundabout. It's coming from. You don't like being pummeled.
Is it in?
I'm
I'll
not
try
sure.
again.
Which direction of the road are you driving on? England is on one side
I
of the road.
don't mind giving my
going a different
example
direction,
without you
and in
asking.
America-
Hello. Yeah, you're on a roundabout.
So okay, there you go. You get the idea. I'll be speaking to JLB, not the loud guy. So that's tomorrow. I gave you a link. If you want to be on board for that, you do need to get on the email list. MG says, do you think they kill any of them for real, for sacrifices? No, why? I mean, why? And two, if you're going to assert people are really dying at any of these events, you need to provide evidence because the media doesn't. Show me where somebody's actually died. Do they kill people in the movies? Do they kill people in propaganda films? Do they kill people in atrocity propaganda? The answer is no. They don't. They don't have to. But a lot of people can't let that go. They really can't. They can't let the idea go that they're so bad that they just kill random people for shock. It's like, no, they don't. Or they do it for sacrifices, and they never really define what that actually means. So, let's continue. Well, Oakley had a great discussion. I noticed a few people here were noticing how triggered he was. He had a great discussion about the Mandela effect. It's the only reason I'm subscribed to him again. So, we're talking about death fakers and people playing multiple roles. The other day I brought this up. Interesting that Kevin Booth was the producer of Bill Hicks and Alex Jones, and he seems to be part of it and privy to it. And I had an anonymous tip come into me by email, and they said, hey, you got to look. They're saying, hey, this Kevin Booth is actually, he's with Sacred Cow Productions. They're saying he's deep faking as a right-wing shock jock known as Eric Mancow. So is Kevin Booth deep faking it as Mancow? Well, it looks like it. But beyond looking like it, we have found quite a bit of narrative structure supporting it. Just like I'm talking about with Michio Kaku, 1-inch equation, Bruce Lee's 1-inch punch. We're finding many correlations and connections between these, and they're more common than you think. And what we're actually talking about is deep fakes. Not the kinds that the media are lying to you about where they put your face on someone else in a video. We're talking about CIA agents playing characters on the world stage for your mental enslavement. Shepherds. Wolves in shepherd's clothing. And they're all over the media. The media is crawling with these things. So when we're talking about someone like Michio Kaku is just an influencer, a pitchman for the technocracy, we talk about him being the same person who, transcended physical reality and could, punch 1 inch and shoot a fireball. Like, not a coincidence. Just like it's not a coincidence that Michio Kaku has the same haircut as Albert Einstein. They create these correlations because it influences the masses. This is part of weaponized anthropology, no different than Rachel Dozenel putting on blackface to join the NAACP. No different than certain CIA agents dressing up like rednecks and mixing with the flat earthers. It happens all over the place. So Bruce Lee being Michio Kaku, Christopher Green, Brandon Lee, nothing shocking there. Yes, Sci Obstacles tomorrow. We will be having a meetup with JLB. It's going to be interesting. We're going to basically bury the Mandela effect, as Oakley calls it. We're going to bury it. It's already dead. We hammered the nails in the coffin, and that's about it. Oh, by the way, if anybody wants a copy of this, a few people were asking. We have canvas prints of the crisis actor, David Hogg. One of the things we think we might have an impact with, as far as getting people to understand our critique of the MSM, is we should just start commodifying their characters with art. With effective criticism of public figures, protected things. These are things you can do according to the Fair Use Act. So, producing artwork based on crisis actors or staged events, whether it's literary or paintings or just stuff on T-shirts, by all means, do it. Do it. I mean, these are taxpayer-funded psychological operations. You essentially own this stuff. You own this property. If you want to look at it that way. If you want to make, like, Boston Strong T-shirts, no one can stop you. You're Boston Strong. If you want to glorify one of these crisis actors, and of course we're talking about them as actors, like we know that they're actors. This is keeping up with the crisis actors. It's one of our, in fact, it's going into its third year now. Keeping up with the crisis actors. It's been that long. So here's a link if you want to see it in the Washington Post. The intriguing science behind Bruce Lee's 1-inch punch. And then here's the other article. The Big Think, Michio Kaku, the 1-inch equation to explain all physical laws. Evolvement says Jurassic Liars calls it the Scamdella effect. Interesting. I'd like to hear what he has to say. I'm all think and let think, but the problem is the Mandela affected are pretty much, I think, not letting you exclude yourself from their paradigm. It's kind of pushy. They want to impose that on you. Like, I don't like it when someone says I'm an infidel, because I don't think that Allah's Akbar. And I don't like it when people call me a sinner because I don't believe the Bible's legit. I don't like it when people call me a polluter because I don't recycle, or because I throw plastic in the other thing so it doesn't get recycled. Like, I don't like all these various labels. So they're going to call me a Mandela effect denier because I don't believe in it. I'm not cool with that. A couple more things I want to bring up before we go. I have to cut this short because I want to do my homework for tomorrow. And we're also working on Drilled, the documentary. Okay, so one, no matter how much damage we supposedly have done to the environment, we will never do more than one single volcano in terms of CO2. Something to keep in mind. Also, Greta uses single-use, non-recyclable plastic junk and litters all over her electric Tesla. So, basically, she's Al Gore in a little girl suit. Here's a link if you want to pick up the latest Infinite Plane Society mug. Celebrate hate speech with an Infinite Plane Society mug. I might even start that. Celebrate hate speech. I'm so tired of people like the ADL running roughshod over us. Organizations like that. I mean, look, here's an example. They're saying that bowl cuts are symbols of hate speech now, or they are hate speech. It's a hate symbol. But look at this. Here's Mao. Here's Uncle Joe and Stalin. Here you have Himmler. And here you have Obama. A bunch of fascists hanging around with these girls with braids. So I'm thinking, if we can correlate bowl cuts with hate crimes, and then I guess it's safe to say that you could correlate this type of agitator with whatever comes next. And I happen to think that, yeah, in other words, we ought to ban braids. Can we ban braids with bowl cuts as just indicators of an extremist ideology? Braids associated with fascism are just as bad as bowl cuts associated with, well, terrorism and right-wing fascism. Left-wing fascism, right-wing fascism, these are, they're symbols. If we're going to play that game of banning stuff, which I don't want to play, and that's why I'm thinking about this celebrate hate speech might be something to start promoting. Also, we are going to keep going with Speak Penguin or Die. The Flat Earth movement is going to have to learn to speak penguin or die. In other words, if it doesn't move south, well, there's nowhere left for it to go. Man, they're really pushing this UFO stuff too. We called it out that they weren't reporting UFOs anymore, despite the proliferation of smartphones. Well, all of a sudden, UFOs are back. And now this is New York Times, stunning story, secret Pentagon program to study unidentified objects. I mean, why is this coming out all of a sudden? We got Space Force, we got UFOs. This is probably the Space 9/11 that we're being prepped for. And I think along with it it's gonna be accompanied by EMP and loss of your internet service. Like the space aliens will send us DDoS attacks or something before they come down. All right, here's a piece I found recently. My month with chemtrail conspiracy theorists. There's a few things about this article that struck me, and I just want to get right to the point. So the whole article is making fun of them for being conspiracy theorists. But then at the very end, it says that she's so busy living her life that she doesn't have time to sort through fake news. And at the end of this article, she concludes that, well, maybe I'm being misinformed because I haven't had a whole lot of time to think about it. So she goes to Metabunk with the author. She sees, okay, here's another explanation. And at the end of this article, she's basically saying, all right, well, I guess I didn't do my due diligence. And it says here, it strikes me that our relationships to facts can become tenuous. So we literally no longer agree on whether or not the sky is blue. So in other words, she's saying that people are somewhat subjectivists. And to this degree that we are very subjective, we can be led to almost believe in anything. And that's what this article is saying. They're saying she makes 6 digits a year. She's enjoying her life. She's not a dumb person. You can see here, she's not crazy. But she believes that vaccines cause autism and chemtrails will kill you, and here's why. And at the end of the article, she basically backs off of it. And again, this is just saying that you can be a victim of misinformation or unfiltered information. Just like you could be poisoned by food and you do the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, whatever, to regulate your food and make sure that it's safe according to governmental standards. They want to use that same rationale to regulating information. And I think that's the end goal. The end goal is the regulation of information. And I think one way we get around this, of course, is by moving into parody, art, satire, etc. I'm going through comments. Chazology Bear says, I exhale CO2, ban me. Well, exactly. That's what they want to do, though. The elite have already pretty much succeeded in getting the average person to agree to pay for the air that they breathe. Now, there was something else about this article that also struck me. The writer, who's on the left, believes in climate change. And her issue is this, because to me, I noticed this too. This is how you know it's fake. If the conspiracy theory you're listening to is extremely partisan, it's probably fake. So on this one here, listen to this. And this is from the writer of the piece. She says that her problem with these chemtrail conspiracy theories is that it detracts from a legitimate fear of climate change. As in, they should be like it's responsible to fear climate change. It's responsible to think that's an actual threat. And so this writer is perturbed that instead of fearing what they should fear, which is climate change and global warming, they fear climate change, which isn't like scientifically validated. So they could be, they're kind of like they're misusing their fear, or their fear isn't serving the greater good. But I think it's funny how that works. So listen to this. The tragedy of all this hysteria is the misguided activist energy. So, like, instead of you, the chemtrail fearer, marching out for climate change with Greta, you're saying the sky is falling. And I think this is great because there's so many people who rip on the environmentalists and call global warming a hoax, but they believe in what they say is geoengineering, and they conflate it with these chemtrails. But listen, the great tragedy of the chemtrail hysteria is the misdirected activist energy. Aircraft emissions do pose environmental risks, and they contribute to global warming. But instead of holding airlines accountable for cutting emissions, climate change truthers shake their fists at the sky and curse an unknowable, vague they. And they do more than that. I can list a number of YouTube channels of climate change activists who pray away the chemtrails. I'm sorry, chemtrail activists. I mean, the climate change activists are bad enough, but chemtrail activists, they actually believe that you can pray them away, and they have all kinds of bizarre explanations for these things. So my question here, though, is how can you believe in climate change knowing it's so partisan and it's just a political ploy to grab more property, power grab by the government? How can you say, well, that's fake, but then you say chemtrails are real? And how is it that only right-wingers believe in chemtrails and left-wingers believe in climate change? How is it that split? Like, to me, that's just way too convenient to be believable. And I've said this before, though. It's all about gatekeeping. So if you don't fear the mainstream fear, you're gatekept by a secondary fear. You don't fear climate change? Well, here's something else for you to be scared of. And I think these are primal fears they want you to have. They need you to fear the sky deity, angry sky deity, or space deity, asteroids, UFOs, climate change, chemtrails, some vague they, demons in the sky, basically blurting out the sun with their flatulence. I mean, that's what these people believe. It's absurd. I really say it's absurd. There are rational explanations for it, just like there are rational explanations for so-called climate change. Facts about cats say chemtrail activists are like pro-lifers. If they really believed what they say, they would be doing something. They don't believe it. It's clickbait. Chemtrail videos used to be clickbait. I think it made Coast to Coast relevant to a lot of people all of a sudden because there's something everyone can point to. But I think it's fake. I really do. I've never been afraid of chemtrails, and the chemtrail boofers don't really do anything about it. I see them sitting in their Jeeps, hotboxing it, essentially, with vape juice. Like, what? You're vaping yourself. You're vaping every other breath, and you're talking about chemtrails. So no, I don't buy it. I don't think it's a legitimate fear, but I do find it interesting how this author is like, it's too bad you guys are hysterical about chemtrails because you could be fighting climate change with us. It's kind of like one religion, looking at these believers in another religion and just saying, man, I admire their energy and enthusiasm. I wish I could get them into my flock. Okay, so I was saying earlier, I have to get on board with my preparation for tomorrow. I have to study the Mandela effect, basically. We're going to be discussing that. And as I said earlier, I have that book out, Mandoozled, that explains my arguments for this. So I'm going to have to kill the stream. And tomorrow, I'm going to be talking to John LeBon about the Mandela effect. So if you want to watch that stream, you have to follow me at a Patreon link below, where you'll get a notification linking you to wherever this talk is going to happen. I believe it's going to be in his Discord server, but I'll send you a link. So I'll see you all later on. This is
I ain't playing no games. I'm on a different plane. I live on an infinite plane. I know the news is fake. They're trying to choose my fate. I know the views is fake. They're pushing the global stage. Fake news on the radio wave. All the hoax, the whole world is a stage. Body double like I'm Saddam Hussein. Doing my thing. Don't want the fame, just trying to make change. They took out my page. But an infinite gang, infinite plane. Playing no games. Infinite gang, we ain't playing no games. Infinite plane, I'm on an infinite plane. Infinite plane, the world that I live in is strange. Cause I'm on an infinite plane. I'm doing different things, yeah. I'm on an infinite plane. I'm on an infinite plane. I'm on an infinite plane. Stay with the infinite gang. Step on the street, pulling strings. If they can call me the gang. I'm on the infinite plane. Infinite gang, man. That's me on my